Hi there, it's me, Editor David, and I'm just here real quick because there are some audio issues that I just wanted to let y'all know about right off the bat, because we are recording separate because of coronavirus, and there are some technical mishaps happening, but I hope that you enjoyed the episode anyway. It's a bit of a long one. We really put our hearts into it, so yeah, hope you enjoy.
Welcome back to the Bundle Bourgeoisie, episode 2, the March 2020 bundle.
Yeah. Do we have a name for our fans? The Bougies?
The Bougies is always a good name. Yeah.
Just gonna throw that at you right at the beginning of the podcast, so I mean business.
Is it a little self-indulgent, though, to name our own fandom? Shouldn't they come up with a name?
That's true. But then again, we are the bourgeoisie, so maybe we should just call them the proletariat.
Yeah, they're just. I mean, do we even acknowledge their existence, really?
Like, because they're like we are trying to exploit their labor by which labor I mean the act of listening to this podcast.
Hey, it's labor
for our gain. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So they are our laborers. So
yeah.
Yeah, just the laborers, right?
Hey, should I say my name?
Yeah, we should probably introduce ourselves.
Hey, last time I said David F. Word Baxter.
Oh shit!
Really quick off the podcast.
We just dropped the F-bomb right at the start.
It was pretty intense, and I don't know if YouTube cares about it. I don't know if you've uploaded it, but
nasty, dirty boys. Oh, I have not. Thank you for the reminder. I will get on my shit.
Oh, after this.
Yes, that whole COVID, 19 thing has distracted me.
This is the official Bundle Bourgeoisie COVID-19 podcast.
Even if COVID goes away, we will continue to discuss it. It's going to leave lasting detrimental effects to the lower class in America, so we should really bring it to light.
Yeah, we're actually just going to be talking about it for the rest of the podcast and nothing else. So if you're looking for an escape from it and your time at home, sorry.
So, moral of the story, be careful.
Yeah. So we're trying out the remote thing. We were actually in person the first time, and we're not this time.
Yes, we are doing our diligent responsibilities as members of a society in which we are looking out for each other and trying not to spread a disease that is killing people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so bear with us as we try out the new format as well, because we're gonna have to do it eventually. Because I do plan on moving to Japan at some point.
And who knows what I'm going to do with my life, but I'll have access to recording equipment and maybe a Starbucks, so I can keep at it.
Well, my name is David Baxter. David, D-A-V-I-D, Baxter, B-A-X-T-E-R, so you can write that down.
In case they want to spell it out and quote you in their article.
Yeah, in your bibliography or citations, because I know that this is going to be used in like an academic sort of format.
Oh, please, if you ever find a reason to source this podcast in an academic format, please do, because we 100% don't know what we're talking about. So,
dude, that would just make my day, because that would be like sourcing like the Village Idiot on like the Daily News. So,
oh, my favorite thing is to just piss on academic papers and just like remind them that everyone who ever wrote anything was just an idiot putting words on paper.
Literally just fucking word vomit. And like that's why I hate writing papers now. Is just like I don't know. I just like talking about things and having a conversation, like a back and forth, instead of just like word spew ideas.
Exactly. Like for all we know, Sophocles was just some guy who wrote a paper to make fun of some dude before him. Like,
yeah. Also, like was it him or was it Plato that was like totally killed for just like basically
Sophocles.
asking a bunch of he just like kept going up to a bunch of people and just like asking them a bunch of invasive questions, like the fucking, this is a deep cut, but like that fish from like the Dreamcast game. I don't know if you've ever seen that. I showed it to you.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly. We're all just a bunch of assholes who have no idea what we're talking about, just pretending to know what we're talking about.
Deep, personal, invasive questions. By the way, listeners, what is your social security number? Please post it in our new Reddit.
Yes. We have a Discord now. You can post it in the Discord. We have the socialism safe space is a great place to post social security numbers.
Oh, that's what it's for. We share the social security together.
We can't give you our wealth if we don't know who you are.
It's true. It's so fucked up. Yeah, so anyway, the point of this podcast is the games. Let's get into that.
Let's get into the games, the fun in games, right? So today, this week's month. Oh my gosh, this month's bundle, not day or week, this month's bundle. It includes some great hits such as AI War 2,
F1 2019,
My Friend Pedro,
Etherborn,
EXAPunks,
1980X,
Niffelheim,
Planet Coaster,
Battle Chasers Nightwar,
Turok,
Death's Gambit,
and then the final one is Full Seal Arbiter's Mark. Also, there's extra games.
There are. Would you like to talk about the extra games? Because I did not play them. I was too busy. We'll get into that at the end.
Yeah, sure. The extra games for this month are Tales from Off-Peak City, Space Routine, and One Step from Eden, the demo. So that's pretty rad.
It's going to be insane.
We got a lot to cover.
Yes, we do. So we'll probably go a little quick through this week's, right? Just to try to cover everything?
Maybe if we feel like it. Should we put up a timer? We talked about that.
We did talk about it, but we'll probably just end up going off because that's what we do.
Fuck it. Hey, it's only the second episode anyway.
Yeah, exactly. If they're tired of hearing our voice, they can listen to the abridged version, which is just the end where we say the two games that are worth it most, I guess.
Yeah. Or just like the part where we announce all the games and you're just like, oh, got it.
Yeah, exactly. Or the just skip to the section in every discussion where it's if you should play it or not.
Yeah. Which of course we'll do time codes never, maybe.
Yeah, we're supposed to figure that out too.
I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? We should make it easy for our listeners.
We should.
We should, but also the work is kind of on them. They're the proletariat, right?
Yeah,
we just put it out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You guys can share amongst yourself the time codes, right?
Yeah. So nice. So nice to our fans.
We love you guys. We appreciate everything you do for us, even though there's like 3 listeners right now. But those of you who come in the future.
I didn't even know this.
Yeah. I haven't even showed you our numbers yet, but it's not terrible considering we've only released 1 and haven't advertised it in any way. We have 3 subscribers.
Well, hell yeah.
Which... honestly, I'm not 100% sure if they're people or if they're the like other podcasting services that have to subscribe in order to update our RSS feed.
Jesus. All right.
So,
well,
enough shop talk. AI War 2.
Yeah.
I took on the challenge of playing AI War 2 this bundle, and
sounded like a challenge.
It was. I am not a fan of RTS games.
I like them, but yeah.
Yeah, they're complicated. It's learning a lot of like micros and what, you have to memorize a whole bunch of units and stuff.
It's stressful, man.
It is.
Especially
it's like
real time?
It's books the game. It's weird. And then like knowing how to slow down time and speed up time and like it's still a lot. It's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. They're hard.
Like,
but this game
Yeah.
Like what?
I was just gonna say, I grew up with RTSs like Age of Empires and Age of Mythology, stuff like that, and like those games are like fairly simple. It's just like get the meat, get the tree, now you build thing, and like
yeah. And this one's like you have 7 different spaceships you can do, but you need like you can only build certain things if you have one spaceship in a zone, and you can only build other things if you have a different spaceship in the zone, and all the spaceships, or some of the spaceships produce units that fight, while other ones just defend, and it's a lot. It's a lot.
I feel like if you're into that sort of like grand strategy, sort of space war type thing, you probably jive with it though, yeah?
Oh, 100%, yeah. The single player was great. By the way, the developer is Archon Games
That's
LLC.
important.
So
It's very important.
yeah, we gotta credit the people who do the work here. Honestly, like they're working their asses off in a weird world.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, so this game, it's these great segues in today's
Dude,
episode.
we all have
Anyways,
like this COVID energy going into this podcast because we've all been like isolated at home and like not talking with
I
other people so much.
don't remember what human touch feels like anymore.
Wow. Well, you're one
Yeah.
step further than me. I still have that at least.
Yeah, some of us have mothers. I get it, David.
You know, I got cookies and freshness.
my father has just yelled at me about socialist ideology for 3, 4, 5, 6 years.
Has he yelled at you about socialism or about the dangers of socialism?
About my young, arrogant, liberal beliefs of socialism.
Ah, I see.
Yeah. It's hectic. It's a hard time to be a free thinker. So AI War. Let's get into this. Let's get into what this game is doing.
Please,
I played in reality probably about a couple hours of it. I felt like it was enough. It's not a very like lore or story heavy game. It's sort of just a do things kind of game. And I played a couple different scenarios, and it's a game about colonization, right? That's pretty much it. You're in space. Most of the scenarios have you like aggressively having to take over these other planets for their resources so you can build more ships so that you can get to some sort of central objective before any other space force is able to. And so you're constantly just like kill a bunch of people on a planet, build a bunch of factories, make a bunch of ships, go to the next planet, and you're trying to do this as quickly as possible because the time constraints are pretty short in the game, honestly. My first scenario I played for probably about 20 minutes, and I thought like I was managing things great. I had control over all my little areas very well. I was producing enough and then cautiously trying to take over places so I wouldn't get overwhelmed. And then I just get a pop-up that's like, you failed the game. You lose.
And
I had no idea.
Isn't it?
I was like, I jumped back through all my like planets and I'm like, what died? And nothing. None of my planets died. Like, I had great control, but they just beat me to the objective without me even knowing or understanding that I had an objective I was going for.
Yeah, I had a similar experience with another game we're going to talk about in a bit, Planet Coaster, where I just like I didn't know always like why I was failing. I would know that I was, but like not how to fix the problem because it doesn't explain itself well in that regard.
Yeah, the whole tutorial and everything for this game was very just sort of like, this is how you click on things. And that was it.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, so that's the whole thing. It's just conquering and colonizing these planets so that you can use their resources so that you can take over other things, It's very
expand, destroy, collect, like the capitalist monarchy, like
100% just like pointless war for resources,
Yeah, fuck it.
And that's about it, The Ludo narrative, it's kind of this it's as you'd expect in some sort of like mass scale RTS conquering game, that like you're this disembodied sort of omniscient thing controlling the war, and you don't see the people that die, you don't see the carnage or how it impacts these other worlds or anything. It's just like kill it, take it over, move on,
Right.
That's it. There's not a lot of craziness to it. It's an alright game. I'm not a fan of RTSs. If you like RTSs, you'll probably enjoy it. The single players seem to have a lot of depth, but my like benchmark to compare that to anything is like StarCraft.
That's pretty much my benchmark too. Like
exactly.
So, how does it compare to StarCraft?
It's you only play as like one species, so there's not like a lot of player agency in which you get to like make choices that make the game feel different. It really just comes down to knowing how to manage the specific units that you're already given. But there's some cool stuff like upgrades. You can upgrade your stuff as you earn currency in the scenarios to like make your ships do more damage or make them able to take more damage. So there's this sort of like layered element of managing the individual units as well, with some like stuff you can hack and things like that. So it feels like there's a lot of depth there. StarCraft is pretty much just like the understanding of placement and troops in that regard, but this one has a lot of like really managing sort of minor details, which I think makes it interesting.
But it's not for you.
But it's not for me. It's not.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
my cup of tea is more like soda.
Speaking of a game that is not quite my cup of tea, a game that I played, and I kind of took the bullet a little bit with this one because neither of us really wanted to play it. But what's funny is that I can't even really play it on my own computer at home. I don't really think it's like powerful enough. It's F1 2019, baby, from Codemasters. It is a Formula One racing simulator, folks, with real story interview segments, high-speed racing. The big thing about gameplay in this thing is that it's all about like following the line, which if you follow like professional racing, it basically just means like the ideal path for the car, and the game will sort of help you out with like green indicators if you're kind of going the right speed, or red indicators if you need to slow down on the line. But it's fucking hard, man. The cars that Formula One are all about go so fast that like there's no way that they can make every turn going full speed, so they have to slow down and brake and turn and drift, and it's tough. If you're not like into that sort of thing, there's not a ton to be enjoyed about it. There is a very extensive story mode that it seems like it has a very fun like reactive interview element where like after a race you get asked questions about the race, like what did you think when blank took you over in that part, or what do you think when like you helped your teammate out here but you came in a lower place, and you basically have the opportunity to be like, oh man, yeah, like it was for the sake of the team, I did what I had to, next time we'll go in hardcore, or you can be like, yeah, like, I mean, I'm like the best racer ever, so there's no need for like any kind of like worry
so
about
it's
how
got
I'm gonna
sort
do
of
the
that
next
like
time.
NBA sports game aspect to it that we're seeing in a lot of things.
Sort of turning into a video game the sort of career aspect of a racer and the sort of dramatization of their life through these sort of live interviews, and I think that's pretty cool.
Man, I want a WWE game that does that, where like you actually get to shit talk your opponent and stuff.
They did that. Like a couple of wrestling games are very, very much all about that. I don't know the exact ones.
I mean, I have not played a wrestling game since like the PS2, so that could be why.
There's some really good ones for like PS3 that were like all about the career mode and like making your own character and like sort of becoming a heel or a baby face or like whatever the terms are, and like sort of living like the story, the narrative of like the soapbox that is wrestling in the modern day.
Can't believe you even knew there were terms. I did not know there were terms.
Oh, did you not know that?
A heel or a baby?
Have you never heard of
I mean,
those?
it totally makes sense, but
Here,
that's insane.
there you go, cat. To let the cat out. Okay, what was I saying? Yeah, so babyface is like a person in wrestling who is like the good guy, and they're new in the ring, and they're there to try to take on the heel, who's sort of like the main challenger, the person who's winning, and like the crowd sort of jeers against.
Okay.
There's only ever been one heel in history that the crowd actually cheers for, and that's the Gravedigger. Hey, this is David from the future, editing David, and I just wanted to say I got this totally wrong. Gravedigger is actually a monster truck and not a professional wrestler. Actually, the professional wrestler I was thinking of was The Undertaker, so just know that that's the case for the rest of the time that I'm talking about professional wrestling, and I am sorry. What even is this tangent?
So the heel's the bad guy.
Yeah, the heel is definitely the bad guy.
Oh my god.
So the Gravedigger, the thing that's cool about him is that he's stone-faced. Anytime that he gets hurt, he doesn't look like he's hurt at all. And, like, it's just fucking... Like, he only recently ever lost for the very first time and showed pain. And like just the
Wow.
narrative of that, of people like being so attached to a person that feels invincible, going on for like 30 to 40 years, and for the very first time having them be taken down by a fresh baby face.
It's this whole ass like spaghetti western narrative with like white hats and
Oh,
black hats and shit.
it's totally a fucking soap opera, but with like muscle bodybuilders. It's great.
Damn,
I wish I was more into it than I am.
I know. I need to watch wrestling more. Every time I like hear about the theatrical elements and stuff, I'm just like, it's incredible.
Oh yeah, it's long form storytelling at its finest, really.
Yeah.
But that being said, that's not F1. I don't know how great the long form storytelling is in Formula One, but they definitely try to get a little bit of that in the story mode. The thing that I was gonna say that I don't really jive a whole lot with is that there are microtransactions like everywhere in this game.
Yeah.
Like for new little cars, there's fucking customization options for your driver, like how you want him to dress. You can like buy better outfits for him, which I guess is nice in the story mode. But at the same time, like, why the fuck are you?
What does it even do? Unless I can get like oil to lather my baby self up to make me more aerodynamic, like what?
No, it's just like a green suit versus a red suit. Like that's it. And you pay real money for it. Like, I don't get why you wouldn't be able to just unlock it through playing the game. It just feels like fucking money grubbing.
Yeah, at that point, it's just like, you want something cool to look at, you've got to spend money. I mean, I guess there's something nice about the core mechanics being free in that case, because there's a lot of games that have been gatekeeping, like, mechanics, but microtransactions are just a tough beast.
Like, that's why, like, if you're into this kind of racing game, you'll probably like it. Otherwise, this is basically good as a benchmarking game. I'm kind of glad that I have it, because if I get a new PC, I'm going to want to try this game out and see, like, I want to crank out the graphics and see, like, how I can fucking make the asphalt look like fucking real-ass melt-your-face asphalt. I don't know, that'd be kind of fun, but other than that, I'm not
Let's
super
see how many copies
game.
you can run at one time.
Dude, like every single screen, like 3 triple screen, like
just ghost race the whip.
Just trying to max them all out, or maybe like because I think this game also like has the thing where you can like extend the monitor for like multiple
so if you have like the curve
so
set up,
like, yeah, that would be pretty sick. But that's F1.
All right, F1, interesting game. Would you buy it? Would you recommend it?
I feel like as a part of the bundle, if you want a game for benchmarking, it's kind of cool. Otherwise, I wouldn't personally buy it, but I could see why other people might.
Okay, fair enough. So let's talk about one of my. I think this game was kind of a gem in the bundle. It wasn't very long, but it was really good. It's My Friend Pedro by Dead Toast Entertainment. This is one of those games that when you start it, you know something immediately is going on and they're trying to do something, but it takes a real long time to figure out what it is. And I think that's really important in this game because it makes you go through the game behaving a certain way, and then you get to the end and you find out some information that just sort of makes you reanalyze the entirety of the game you've been playing. It's really interesting. It's the stylistic side scroller shooter where like you're going for points. You don't really care about winning the level per se. You know, you get through the level for the story and everything, but the core gameplay loop is trying to perfect these levels, trying to get as much points as possible. Sort of what was that dirt bike game on Miniclip?
Oh, fuck! You mean like I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah,
but like it's also been like made into like another game more recently.
Yeah, but in that vein, you know, it's you're going for points, you're going for style, you're going for tricks. That's the core gameplay loop. If you just grind through the game, you could probably beat the whole thing in like 3 hours, if that. But it's really interesting. It's a sort of love child of the early 2000s in this sort of thematic idea and the way the game's presented and the things they're talking about, because almost immediately, like, it's gratuitously violent, like Hotline Miami kind of style. Like, you are just brutally shooting people in the face and the nuts and the bodies and the arms and just like obliterating these enemies. And
Just totally desensitized to the violence.
Exactly. Like they joke about it almost immediately off the bat. Your friend Pedro, the floating banana, guides you to a gun and goes, "Oh, someone shouldn't just leave this around. A person could do a lot of damage with this." And you pick up a loose gun and then run around and kill a bunch of people.
Got it. By the way, I found the game. It was Trials.
Trials, yes, Trials.
Yes, Trials. Good game.
Good game. So that's exactly the game. Is just like running around gratuitously killing a bunch of people, and
all stylishly as possible. It sounds.
Oh
like.
Yeah, there's like slow mo, and you can dodge, and you can kick frying pans and basketballs in people's faces. There's segments where you're skateboarding and shit. It's super cool. There's a lot of really fun flair to it.
Yeah, I followed this game for a while, just because the combat on Twitter was so cool. Like, just seeing gifs of, like, a guy jumping off of a skateboard and shooting a gun at a frying pan and bouncing the bullet off and hitting two guys at once, and, like, just crazy shit like that.
Yeah, there's some buck wild stuff you can do. It's like playing Dishonored and trying to get the coolest, like, kill sequence stuff, too, you know? Those
Bulletstorm.
There are people that can do some magic. Yeah, I love Bulletstorm.
No one talks about Bulletstorm, but I love Bulletstorm.
No one talks about Bulletstorm, but that game was so good.
Yeah, dude, I'm so glad you like that game, too.
that game was, like, before they decided to remake Doom and get really into Doom stuff, that was, like, the Doom of this generation, almost.
It really was.
In that sort of like free flow combat
point system
style,
like,
exactly.
Yeah. Is there a point system in this game?
There is a point system, and it's really interesting to manage. Like, if you just sprint through and kill everyone and don't take any damage and don't die, you'll almost always. I played on the hardest difficulty. I don't know what difficulty, like hard, very hard. I don't know. But just doing that, racing through the levels, I was scoring on average like a C or a B. And you can get up to an S rank, so... Yeah, so you gotta get real flared with it, you know?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's gonna be great for, like, Twitch clips and, like, all, like, the little, like,
100%. Yeah, if you're not playing for style, the game is actually, like, incredibly easy to just solve and get through, because they give you a dodge and pistols with unlimited ammo, so you can just spam dodge and spam shoot until you kill everything and then just move on without having taken any damage ever.
It's cool. It's kind of like Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
It's like a toolkit of fun.
Exactly. It's really what you make of it.
That's cool.
But the thick of it, the storyline is like, it's really good. There's just these gems of hidden information. Did we decide? I don't know if I want to spoil this game, because if people are gonna play it, I think seeing the ending happen is kind of magic. But there's some really great themes it talks about in, like, coming from broken households and how that identifies, like, who we are and what that makes us into, and escaping the sort of ideas of familial bonds and what being loyal to your family means, and questioning your morality versus, like, the way you were raised. It's really interesting.
Because, like, the main character is kind of a psychopath.
100%. Like,
it's about, like, the disconnect between what he does and sort of what he thinks.
Absolutely. That's why I think the game is saying a lot about, like, mental health issues too, in that sense, that, like, he is suppressing a lot of stuff, and it's actively shown in this, like, this idea of Pedro, this floating banana friend, and this weird ethereal world that you go to with Pedro sometimes, that's, like, supposed to be this happy place where you can escape from anything, and it's really interesting. So I think it talks a lot about some really heavy themes in a very lighthearted, sort of satirical game, which is a lot of fun.
It's like how violence is sort of our escape from shit nowadays.
Yep. That's exact. I mean, there's literally a segment in the game where you're killing violent video gamers. So
that's awesome. I love that. That's so sick.
It's great. It's great.
Like that one part from, like, I guess not the part, just the whole fucking game. Did you know about that game, Hatred, or whatever it was? The really controversial one about school shooting, or not school. It's just a shooting game.
No. Postal.
No, not just Postal. Postal was about, like, the dude who would just run around and piss on people and shit like that and throw scissors. Hatred was actually, like, a reprehensible game that was, like, just black and white and made specifically to like, produce controversy. Shit. And you play as, like, a dude in a trench coat with, like, long black hair. and the goal of the game is to run around and shoot as many people as possible and do that as much as you can before the police stop you.
Damn.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar, but yeah, that's exactly. It's really interesting, the exploration of like gratuitous violence and what it's saying about us, like psychologically and emotionally and everything.
Violence is explored through comedy.
Violence is explored through comedy. I don't know why it's not done more often.
Yeah. Whoa, it's like slapstick or something.
Yeah, right? That's exactly.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah. So yeah, it is a great game. I think it's definitely worth playing, even if it's just to breeze through for the storyline, honestly.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, my next game here is a game called Etherborn. Etherborn is a game by Altered Matter, and it is an atmospheric puzzle game about manipulating sort of your character in space. And it has this sort of Mario Galaxy-like mechanic where whenever you walk along curved surfaces, you stay facing downward on the curve. So you're able to like walk along archways and then be upside down and then jump off the ledge because for some reason 90-degree angles don't function like that. So you can just fall off a 90-degree angle and then just be falling into space infinitely. But you get teleported back and you just get to solve the puzzle, and there's no real consequence for failure. It's just a game about kind of walking around, discovering, and solving puzzles. I gotta say that it's pretty chill just for that aspect alone, and you can honestly beat the whole game in like probably around 4 hours. Like, it's not that long of a game, and that's including the New Game Plus mode, which...
Damn.
It's, yeah, like, if you want, like, a game completed 100% on your Steam wishlist, like, or not your Steam wishlist, but your Steam inventory, then it's, like, the perfect game for that. And it's just nice to play for an evening. That being said, the story content and, like, the philosophical, intellectual stuff, I could not latch onto. It is some BS, I think. I can't say for sure, but, man, there's a lot of...
It was just, like... quasi-intellectual without like any actual merit.
Yeah, it felt like just like this quasi-intellectual mouth spew of large words and philosophical ideas about the place of humanity in like a ether space. You're like a floating...
So like this podcast.
Yeah, totally. You're like a floating nervous system, like, and you're like walking around experiencing these different sort of things. And I don't know if the message is like reality is your perception, or I don't know what that was. Reality is like your perception or something. Man, I don't get it.
So it's talking some deep ethereal shit that might just totally be nonsense and bullshit.
It all went over my head. Literally the whole thing. I tried as hard as I could to intellectually engage with it. And like I tried, like, maybe it's talking about like some kind of tree of life shit and it's sort of like a metaphor for creation, and like I don't fucking get it. I don't know.
Huh. You know, maybe sometimes a game about a thing is just a game about a thing.
No, yeah, and in that sense, I kind of feel like it's sort of like
almost like the sort of idea that the actual narrative wasn't important. It was just sort of like this is a sort of narrative that fits the style of game we wanted to make.
Yeah, honestly. If you've ever played like Echochrome, the PS3, where you play as like an abstract character, just like kind of wandering around abstract worlds, it's very similar to that, using abstract logic. It's similar, even more so to And Yet It Moves, which is this sort of indie game where you control the gravity of the world, and you have to wander around. And then I also put The Witness here because, like, I love The Witness, but it's got so much shit in it that's like, what the fuck is this? Are you serious? Like, he just like recordings of like Chinese philosophers or just like random fucking other philosophers just like saying shit, and it's just like,
I always find that with these like
I enjoy it, but it's like, why?
really sort of trying to be deep puzzle games that are like, let's just talk philosophy and make you think and wonder about the puzzle of life.
Make you think
know?
that this is super intelligent. Like
Exactly, but it's really just a bunch of disconnected ideas that are saying nothing because it wasn't actually thought out, and like the narrative doesn't actually. This goes into that conversation we've had before. Like the narrative doesn't really fit the Ludo narrative, so there's kind of a disconnect.
Yeah, no, definitely, I would agree with that. That being said, I don't know that I would agree with that with The Witness. I feel like the Ludo narrative is actually quite good in that game, but I don't want to get into that.
Yeah, that for The Witness,
Yeah.
but not
Yeah.
that.
Just
But I feel that disconnect in a lot of puzzle games.
totally. So if you want a game that you can just like beat in one evening, that's pretty chill. You'll probably really enjoy this, but personally, I don't find myself going back to it unless I just want to do the New Game Plus, because I tried a little bit of it, and it basically just like it's the same layout of everything, but sometimes like the spheres that you had to collect before are in like bushes or slightly harder to find locations. So I think that's it.
Yeah. Damn.
Yeah. Well.
All right. Well, back at it again in the Humble Choice Bundle, March 2020.
Krispy Kreme.
We got Zachatronics, baby.
Oh, baby. I loves me some Zachtronics.
The unsung hero of the Humble Bundle, apparently, keeping the whole thing afloat by himself.
Dude, yeah, he keeps me in here. When are you gonna leave,
Yeah,
Zach? When are you gonna stop making
but
games?
I get it. He's doing good shit. Like, these games are insane.
Dude, when do you think we can start doing this podcast with him as a co-host? Would that ever be possible?
Oh man, I feel like Zachatronics would have some shit to say along these lines.
Like
I'm over here like always associating everything to Clash Struggle. Zachatronics would be like, but really what it's saying is robots are gonna kill everyone who doesn't understand programming.
Yeah, dude. So EXAPunks.
So EXAPunks, that's our Zachatronics game. It is, the whole game is just like a lot of Zachatronics games where it's all about programming your way to victory. You have to do this like quasi code and make machines operate in a certain way to achieve some sort of goal. And it's really interesting because if you go back to last month's episode and listen to my critique on what game was it last month? Shinzen IO.
Yeah.
If you go back to last month and listen to my critique on Shinzen IO, it's I dismissed the game almost immediately as way too smart for me and incredibly difficult to figure out, but it seemed like it was doing good things. And so this month when I saw EXAPunks, I was like, all right, we're doing this. We're going to do this, Zachatronics. I promise.
I'm
going to make this game work. Yeah. And so I actually sat down. I actually read the manuals and
read the PDFs.
I read the PDFs. A lot less intimidating in this game. They're only like 3 to 5 pages long, so it feels much more easy to jump into. And I gave it an honest-to-God try, and I got pretty far in the game before I got stumped. The level I ended up getting stumped on, you have to like program a robot to crack a password and then breach into a thing and save the cracked password. It was fucking hard. I still don't know how to solve that puzzle, but that's a story for a different day. But I gave it an honest to God try because I wanted to see like what all was actually happening in this game, more than just like I have some ideas of what he might be trying to talk about. And he hits on some pretty interesting themes almost like right off the bat. And you get to explore it a little bit more as you go in. And it's this idea of obviously the way humanity interacts with technology's world in our world, and what we do in a sort of post technological AI integrated world. But in this realm, he brings up some talks on like healthcare and pharmaceutical companies and the way that we receive access to healthcare. And right? It's really interesting. So the game starts out, you've got a virus that is a lot of people in the world get this virus, and it's slowly turning you into a robot. Like it's adjusting. Yeah, it's fucking with your DNA so that your DNA slowly becomes robotic, and you become this like robotic machine of a person with no capability of thought or anything. You just move along and do your robotic stuff. And it starts with you're unable to afford the medication for this. It's $700 a dose, and you need to take a dose every month. Insulin.
Yeah, no, literally, that is like fucking American insulin right now.
Yeah. So it starts out with that, and so you get hired by an AI hacker that's like trying to learn about humanity. It's really interesting. They're making you do a bunch of like social experiments through your hacking so they can learn about the world.
Whoa.
In order to afford your medication. So it's sort of this like doing what you have to do to survive because you live in a world where the corporations that you work for aren't paying you enough to make the money to stay healthy. Because it's so funny. The game starts out with you doing a service like akin to M-turking.
God.
Yeah, so you get this fucking sheet up and you're just like transcribing receipts for 10 cents a receipt.
Oh my God. This
yeah,
shit,
and then there's
shit sounds like Breaking Bad, but like the sort of video game form. It feels like a lot of the
straight up, it's Breaking Bad, but for hackers.
Yeah.
Like
that's so cool.
It's really cool. Like, and then you end up doing some weird shit for this robot. Like, one of the things she makes you do is just dispense all the money from like 12 ATMs around the city just to see how people react.
Just like what happens to the money. I told you,
yeah.
I think when we talked about this in person, that like this actually happened recently, where close to where we live, where like a guy who wanted to go to jail to get like healthcare and stuff, basically like threw around money into the air from a bank and like robbed it without like a gun or anything, I don't think. And he just gave everybody the money and he waited to be arrested. And like what happened in that particular case is that people just gave the money back to the bank because apparently money's traceable, and they thought like I can't steal this because then they'll trace it back to me. So
because they'll get faulted for stealing.
Yeah, yep. And like that's just sort of a weird reality of like
it's so wild, and that's what's so interesting is that like EXAPunks is talking about this like post-apocalyptic sort of, I mean, dystopian, but really kind of becoming our reality. Not dystopian in the negative sense, but this world where technology is so heavily integrated. But at the same time, he's talking about like relevant, important issues that we're facing today in our society with these issues of like healthcare and finding suitable jobs that actually can pay us to make a living and afford to take care of ourselves, and the ideas of like corporate greed and the way they're seeking profits so heavily. It's really interesting, and I'm really, really, really glad I took the time to actually learn to play this game this time.
I'm glad too, man, because those games are a little bit above my head sometimes, and like I just know that there's something there.
It's hard. It's exhausting. It feels like work learning to play a video game, but 100% it's worth it. Like I think everyone should weather the storm and power through and figure out how to play his games, because he's fucking incredible, and he's talking about really important, really pertinent, really interesting topics in these games that a lot of people probably aren't seeing because they try to do the tutorial and just dismiss it.
Yeah, man, just all this relevant shit about like humans and technology integrating, and like sort of all from such a programmer's perspective, I feel like.
Oh, 100%. It's from like, and that's interesting too, because it's really clear. And if you really want to get like deep into the philosophical like talk of this game, it's so clear the like lifestyle that a programmer has to live, because like the themes and stuff he's talking about, it feels relevant to any working class individual, and to think that like, well, programmers are above us, you know, they went to college, they're making great money doing these jobs where they have to program and stuff, and it's like, nah, dude, they have the same fucking struggle as us.
Man, yeah,
like even programmers aren't making enough to get by.
Yeah, they're just part of the labor force like us.
Yep. So I think you'd be doing yourself a disservice not playing his EXAPunks games.
Hell yeah. So go play it is the thing I'm hearing.
Go play it. Go fucking play these games.
All right. So the next game on the bundle is 1986 by High-Bit Studios. They are very much producing similar to last week's bundle, and they had the Hex, where I called that an everything game. This is definitely an everything game. It just like has so much going on here because it's a very much like a pastiche of sort of 16-bit era 80s gaming, really, even from like the PC to the arcade and like the Sega Genesis. It just feels like such a love letter to that specific era of video games. This game is not long. It is about like an hour long. It is this company's first game, to my knowledge, and this is essentially like a proof of concept. And if more people buy it, then they'll probably make more in this specific like game series, like extending the sort of story, because there's a lot of stuff that's just kind of touched on, but it's not fully like explored the whole game. Like there's this romance that's hinted at in the game, but goes completely unexplored, and part of me actually kind of likes that, just because it sort of leaves this element of like, oh man, like especially because it's all about growing up, and the idea of like having someone that you want to ask out really badly and then you just never do. Like that was something that was weirdly relatable to me, because by the end of the game I was like, wait, what? I'm not asking them out? Really? Oh, okay. What else? This game is very much kind of like interactive poetry. I would describe it like that because there's these interactive segments which are designed to mimic sort of a certain genre of video game, especially some of them very specifically like a certain game. And usually those games are kind of telling a story about the character's mental state at that period of the story.
Oh shit.
So like the very first game that you see is like a beat 'em up game. It's called Beating Heart, and it is like you play it without any sort of introduction to the world, and it's literally your introduction to the world is through this sort of beat 'em up, and it's like this person just kind of going from left to the right and like beating up everything out of their way, and it's sort of like the attitude at the beginning of the game, like fuck you, I'm here and I'm like trying to make a name for myself. And then later on there's like the runaway part, which is very much like I think it was Outset for the Sega Genesis, or Outrun, something like that, where it's like this racing game where you're constantly heading towards a horizon that like never really changes, and it's just talking about the idea of like a desire that you want but can never get, but it's like sort of limited by the technological capabilities at the time. Sort of telling that story.
That's really interesting. That like,
yeah.
like moving forward in the world to a place that can never be realized.
Right. And like the main character lives in the suburbs, and they sort of desire living in the city in this other life that's faster, that's something else, and they want to run away from like their current suburban hell of a life and then find something more interesting and more exciting. And like the character,
God, that's so relatable.
The very first like thing that really endeared me to this game was this moment where they first enter the arcade. And it just is this moment because like the game is interspersed with like these moments of dialogue and kind of visual storytelling in between the video game parts. And this is one of the parts that's just before the part where you get to play a space game, and it's all about like floating through space and like thinking about like the world at large and sort of having your head in the clouds, but also like it's a shmup, so it's about like, you know, taking out everything in your sight and like being sort of so invested in the game that like
sort of space colonization.
Yeah, but like also just the idea of like what it means to be a girl in the 80s playing these games in a dingy basement and the feeling that inspires.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's not something that's talked about a lot, is the sort of like gender ideas of playing video games, especially in early development of them.
Yeah, and like the main character dresses like a boy. I honestly didn't even know from the pictures that they were necessarily female, but when they talk, it's definitely a female's voice. And so when you're listening,
Huh.
it's kind of like I don't know, like there's the visual storytelling of like a person presenting themselves to be someone else as like a sort of escape. And
Yeah, or to fit in if they or I don't know what approach the game takes on it. But...
yeah. Like I mean, I don't know if there's going to be like it's too much to really read into it, but like I don't know if there will ever be like a transgender sort of reveal in this, but it does kind of have those sort of implications and themes of identity and sort of like not knowing where you fit in society and sort of exploring that through escapism in video games that I found to be very, very profound and very nice.
That I'm really glad I got that game in the bundle.
Yeah, no, I highly recommend playing it, especially because it's only like an hour long. Like you can just blast through the whole thing in an evening.
Oh, that's hella easy.
Yeah, and like I will say, actually, some parts were pretty hard. Like the boss at the end of the Gradius part got me to fucking break out my Mario Party hand. We're just like, just like, just trying to like rush him down as fast as I can while dodging all the different lasers and stuff. And another one that I get part of the game that I forgot to mention. There's two other little mini games, which one of them is like Shadow Dancer, which is sort of like a ninja auto runner. And like the very end, you're like running away from like this scary entity, and it's sort of like the idea of running away from responsibilities and like going to this arcade is sort of like that escape for her, but she's also running away. And then finally, the last game that you play is called Kill Screen, and it's sort of like those early PC era RPGs where you're like a dungeon crawler, and it's like a maze and shit. But like the voice that's playing, I'm pretty sure is your mom, like. And it's your mom telling you like you can't escape, please, like you must obey, like it's sort of telling you to conform in a certain way. In the end of the game, spoilers, so you might want to move past this if you want to play the game yourself at this point. But it's sort of like revealed at the end that like you might be running away from like your mom at the end of this, and like that's sort of you reaching a sort of level of experience in your life, and like literally the story is told by you gaining experience, and then being able to explore really further into the dungeon, and then finally you're able to slay the dragon at the end, and the dragon is like after you defeat one of them, like you start hearing from your mom like please don't go, please don't go, please don't go.
So it's a lot of really pertinent issues about like growing up and the struggles of growing up, and like how do we find ourselves? How do we escape the ideas that are put on us by our parents?
Yeah, like the disconnect between like a parent as like a guiding figure and a parent as an authority figure, and like just there's so much going on here, and it's only an hour long. Like I implore you, please play this game, even if you've listened to this point. Like
I'm gonna have to try this out.
Yeah, so I highly recommend it.
I'm just a suburban boy that wants to go to the inner city.
Yeah, dude, I feel that though, because like I born in the suburbs, feels like nothing's really going on, and like you see the city, and it's like so much is going on, so much interesting, and like
when I got back from New York, this January at the start of the semester, man, it was fucking hard because it's a different life. It's slow here. It is like you have to stop moving, and there you can just like you don't have to. You can just fucking keep going. Everyone is just constantly going and moving and growing and changing, and
I find it
people here just like stagnate.
Yeah, dude. And just the thing that I find craziest about this game to me is like how much I'm able to draw from this that I was not able to draw from Eternium. Etherborn. Etherborn. Like, just even the fact that I didn't know its name. It's like,
yeah,
it's so like pastiche, replaceable of like indie whatever creative shit. But then this actually feels like it has a vision and a voice and like something that they want to say.
It's that idea of like. You don't have to try to be profound to be profound.
No, you can say profound things with pop art.
Yeah, like, sometimes just like living your life and just like doing is it leads to the most profound revelations of all. Like
so 1980X, a pastiche of 80s culture that I highly recommend to anyone who has any kind of nostalgia for that era of video games.
I'll leave on the note of the smartest people are the people who are not trying to be smart.
Yeah. Honestly, the smartest people are the ones who realize that everyone's kind of dumb, including them.
We're all just a bunch of sacks of meat that somehow gained thought. Let's be real.
Yeah. I'm pretty dumb, so a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Like most 90%.
My brand is stupidity.
Yeah, but it's like on brand
socialism.
Mm-hmm. All right.
As I eat French fries in the microphone.
Yeah, thanks for really serenading the audience with your mouth sounds. I'm sure that like it's ASMR to their ears. Are you turning up your levels and just oh no. No! Stop it.
All right. Let's talk about Niffelheim. Niffelheim. I can never pronounce this word right, but
it's
my
Nordic.
excuse is it's not my culture, so I
fucking read a book, asshole.
Hey. It is my westernized way of understanding, and I don't feel it is my place to try to appropriate their culture and pronounce their words and things the same way that they do. That's just more offensive, so I will whitewash it.
Look, just learn the proper...
Apologize for my whitewashing.
No, fuck you. Learn the proper way to say it. It's Niffelheimen, okay? So just get it.
Niffelheim. There's no extra... How do you get Niffelheimen?
I made that up.
I'm over here like, this motherfucker understands his Norse mythology. Like, hell yeah.
No. Dude, that's the thing about, like, fucking being an educator, is that it's all about posing yourself as being a person who knows more.
100%.
Yeah.
People who are smart are just pretending to be smart.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Alright.
Niffelheim. It is by a lot of games, not a lot of games, a lot of games.
Okay. Have they made a lot?
Just thought I don't know. I honestly don't know.
I'm gonna look it up while you are doing this.
Okay, yeah, find out if a lot of games has made a lot of games.
I need to know.
It's a sort of side-scrolling survival game, which is really interesting that they decided to make it a survival game, given the whole like lore and story and idea of the game is you're a person trying to make their way into Asgard. So you're in this like liminal realm between life and death, and you're trying to access Asgard so you can live, I guess, happily ever after.
Was it like the mythology of the Norse that you had to die in battle and then you would go to Asgard?
Yes. I believe was that Norse? I think so. I don't know. I should not speak on this subject. I do not know enough about it. So I will defer you to a Wikipedia link that we will leave in the comments of our podcast here. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about Norse mythology, I'm going to dig into it after this, I guess, because I mean the topic's over now. So why would I?
Oh, okay. So they have made a couple
later
other
in
games.
life.
They've made Braveland Trilogy, Spaceland for consoles, Tiny Bang Story. You've heard of that one?
Never heard of any of these.
I heard of Tiny Bang, but I never played it. The Niffelheim is their most recent work.
Okay.
So.
Interesting. Well, it's a side scroller survival game while you're trying to survive in this liminal space of death. It's really sort of just conflicting ideology of the game and the mechanics. I don't know. It felt like there was a disconnect there, but maybe I just don't understand enough about Norse mythology to understand why they chose to make it this sort of survival game in this space.
Well, okay, so you're playing as like a warrior trying to get to Asgard. What do you do to do that?
I believe, if I'm incorrect, I believe you've already passed away. So this is like purgatory. It's a liminal space between life and death in which you're trying to gain access to Asgard after.
When you die, do you come back?
Yes, when you die, you respawn. You get a debuff. I don't know what the debuff does. But yeah, you just respawn because you're already dead. I believe.
Okay.
I could be wrong. That was my interpretation of the game. I don't know if they directly said it at any point. They might have. I don't know. I can't say I was incredibly invested in the game, so I could be just butchering this right now.
That's fine. We are all here to make mistakes publicly so that we can be accosted for it later.
Exactly. I'm openly admitting that like my knowledge of this is not at a level that it probably should be to get the full enjoyment out of this game. It definitely seemed like it assumed you understood the mythology already, and that you saw like the motivations were driven by the mythology and theology of this, not necessarily by here's a bunch of lore to give you a reason for what you're doing.
So do you feel like you could actually learn the lore through playing this game? It sounds like not.
I think there's some lore in the game that you could learn, and I don't know if there's. It didn't feel very much like, hey, here's an interactive way to learn Norse theology and mythology and stuff. It felt very much like, oh, you're interested in this subject, let's make a game around this subject.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I felt a little alienated as part of the audience, but that's as I said, I think that's on me for not understanding the material, not on the game developers for assuming I had the knowledge. I could have Googled it if I wanted to, but the gameplay just wasn't engaging enough for me to feel the desire to put that kind of work in to understand the game.
Hell yeah. Okay. Well,
the gameplay, it was just like wandering back and forth on a screen, picking up sticks and then mashing Y to kill things.
Honestly, that's what it looked like from screenshots. That's kind of why I wanted to give it to you. So
yeah,
good to hear that it was exactly what I thought it was.
100%. But it talks a little bit about death and life after death and the purpose of death in our existence. So it's got some interesting themes. Nothing that I don't think you couldn't pick out of a Wikipedia article on Norse mythology. So I don't really think the game was worth it. I think if you want a little bit of foreshadowing here, if you want a real good game about death and the ideas about death and like what surround them, I would say throw this game in the trash and pick up Death's Gambit, another game from the bundle.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. Get Death's Gambit and throw Niffelheim in the trash. Complete garbage, irredeemable.
But no, I mean the developers put a lot of work into this game.
I know. That's why I'm being an asshole.
So let's not criticize too hard. I mean, I'm sure there's something that someone could find some enjoyment in it.
No,
right?
I think it's probably a good game. I haven't played it.
Not every Picasso is for everyone. Yeah. Some people like a good Banksy.
Some people love their Banksy. Speaking of Banksy, this has nothing to do with Banksy. But Planet...
Oh, I mean, if you want to get into it, like Banksy sort of against the whole corporate idea of art.
Yeah, well, I was going to say Planet Coaster. I mean, you could probably, like, workshop in some Banksy art, because there is Steam Workshop support for this. So...
oh, you're talking about, like just bringing Banksy to the game. I'm talking about, like, let's do a Banksy analysis of Planet Coaster.
Oh, shit. So just, like, looking at, like, okay... Well, you go off.
Looking at the game like Banksy would see it, you know?
I feel like I gotta look more into Banksy. My friend's dog is named Banksy because he's such a cool guy. but
Banksy is fuck.
Yeah.
He's just like, he's some street artist that a bunch of bougie assholes were like, we like this guy now, and now he just makes fun of them and trolls them.
Yeah, and he makes like thousands of dollars from their art. He was the one who did like the shredding of the painting in front of everybody.
100%.
Yeah, no, he's great. Good old Banksy.
Yeah, he knows a bunch of rich assholes just decided they like his art now, and so he just fucks with them.
But Planet Coaster is about building theme parks and shit and being a manager. It's from Frontier Developments. If you've ever played games like Theme Park World is a game that I played very early on the PC. I actually really love that game. Thrillville or Roller Coaster Tycoon, then you'll probably enjoy this. What I will say is that it's a little bit more on the realistic side of the managerial spectrum, so it's less like Thrillville where you can go around and like earn money by playing go-karts and shit. Like, you actually have to make it a profitable business from the ground up. and that can be a little
Was
challenging.
Thrillville the one where you had to like make the rides a certain level of like scary or fun and shit like that?
I think it might have been. It was all you had like the ability to place down like a bunch of different rides and like different mini games as well. Like there was mini golf and like a shooting gallery. Also like a first person shooter.
Oh,
I love the Thrillville games, by the way. Underrated as fuck. They're so much fun.
very underrated.
There's even like a Gauntlet game inside Thrillville. Love that shit. But anyway, we're not talking about Thrillville. Planet Coaster. I felt like I mentioned this earlier. It was a little bit hard to get into just from the outset because there's so many things that can go wrong in this game that like it doesn't explain to you necessarily like why it is wrong. It just explains to you like you're losing money. And you can like break it down like, okay, well, where's the money being lost? It's like, is it wages? Is it this? Is it that? But like at the same time, like if people aren't riding your ride, like, you know, it'll give you feedback like, okay, well, maybe the queue times are too long. But like if the queue times are too long for every single one of your rides, but also if you make the queues like longer and then they get upset because it's too long and they don't want to ride a long ass queue. And
so much like Niffelheim assumes you know Norse mythology, this game assumes you know economics.
It assumes that you know basic economics and man, you know, it also just assumes that like you have like sort of a mind for like theme park design, because there's like things that help you out that like a theme park designer would know. Like I watched a theme park designer play this game on like BuzzFeed or whatever, and like what he did like actually helped me out in my games, where he was like, all right, so I'm gonna try to hide the sort of queue line behind some like grass and shit here, so that people like on the outside don't see how long they're gonna have to wait when they get in the line. Like,
wow, so it's that kind of level of like detail and management.
Yeah.
Like,
and like
wow.
basically like the queues have to be interesting enough while people are waiting in them and have enough scenery, otherwise they'll just like leave. So you actually have to think about like the sort of like the micro and the macro elements. And like the first park that I made that was actually like a rousing success, which I made very recently in sort of like a challenge mode. What I found it to be the most realistic solution, and I found it by looking online, was just to make as many rides as possible and completely ignore food and other beverages until you get like a ton of people in your park, and just like let them fucking have their fucking great ass time and leave, like because
the first one's free, right? Like then they're gonna come back wanting another great ass time, but now they have to go through the food court.
Exactly. Like, but like you get a ton of money from rides and shit. But you don't get money from like the other shit unless you have like a bunch of people constantly like buying stuff from it.
Yeah, so you have to build up a loyal fan base and then exploit.
Exactly. And you can't like start out with the food stuff, otherwise you're going to be paying so much for your vendors that you're going to actually go bankrupt.
Damn.
And so like there's just all of these interesting little managerial decisions in that respect, and it's also just fun. I mean, like, you know, there's a lot of managing games that are about, like, this or that, and it's just kind of like whatever, like Hospital Sim. Like, I enjoy those games a lot, but it's also like, man, it's a hospital. It's kind of boring. But, like, you know, roller coasters and shit like that, it's really fun, and getting to build your own roller coasters is a great time. I made a roller coaster that did exceed the G-force limits a little bit, but that's fine, because people need to be afraid of the American economic experience a little bit. Which is what I named the roller coaster. And it's like got like Uncle Sam shit and like American flags everywhere on the ride.
Oh, I love that.
And it's got like a giant drop that like breaks your neck. Like, I put that in my most recent park, but very few people will ride it. It's actually quite funny.
That's so funny. This is just meta commentary on the system of capitalism and your capitalist roller coaster park that you're designing for our socialist podcast.
Yes. Exactly. No one would ride it. It's really funny.
That sounds about right. When you see the flaws of capitalism presented in front of you, no one wants to get on.
Everyone loves the rest of the rides at the park, and then not
Oh
that.
yeah, that's so funny.
There are some things that like are a little bit like kind of whatever about the game. Like there are sort of themes, and you only have like a limited number of different items from the different themes. So after a while, you end up kind of recycling a lot of the same sort of props in different areas.
Yeah.
And there are like microtransactions in the game to get like more items and stuff. and it actually didn't show them to me for like the first 10 hours of gameplay, and then suddenly 10
Really?
hours in, it was like, hey, by the way, if you click down here, you'll see that there are these gold items that if you spend some money and you get the DLC pack, then you can get them in your park.
Huh.
Yeah, so that was a little interesting that it kind of held off on showing me for a bit until like I was at the point where I was like, man, I wish I had more items. So
Yeah, that's really interesting, that like that balance and knowing when to present it.
yeah, because I imagine if I was presented it right away, it probably would have overwhelmed me a little bit. But
Yeah, you would have probably just dismissed it, honestly.
yeah, so that's an interesting little feature, and I think that if you're into this kind of thing and you're willing to be patient and sort of see what works and what doesn't, you'll have a good time. The only tutorial here is fucking YouTube videos that they link you in the game. So like, get ready for lots of YouTube video watch and quick tips and shit, because that's how you're learning about this game, and through trial and error. But if you're into that, you'll have a great time. So yeah. They have like
Hell yeah.
Project Zoo as well, which is about doing. It's the same developers, but it's like a zoo.
That one just recently released,
Yeah.
right? Like last
And
year.
it went on sale too
Yeah.
recently.
Ooh. Build yourself a zoo.
Yeah, Planet Zoo. But that's Planet
Zoo.
Coaster. So there you go.
Hell yeah. Up next we have Battle Chasers Nightwar. Don't know why the suffix Nightwar. Huh.
Yeah,
Maybe I just didn't get far enough in.
we're gonna talk about suffixes in a minute, but go ahead.
Are we?
Yeah, the fucking Arbiter's mark. Like, I don't know what the fucking Arbiter's mark. I know what an Arbiter's mark is, but I don't know what the fuck a fell seal is. What the fuck is a fell seal? Like, I don't get this fucking suffix. Anyway, keep going.
I mean, fell seal is like I would assume it's nonsensical, but some sort of seal.
I guess it's like the thing. I'll explain it a bit.
Okay, yeah. Battle Chasers Nightwar, made by Airship Syndicate. It's a really interesting game that's done sort of stylistically like a comic book. All the cutscenes were like panels that slid on and off and on and off. Your abilities you use all open these like animated comic book panels. It's really cool, the style of the game. And they did. I feel like I'm talking real fast. I should slow it down, embrace it. You know.
We are.
I just didn't really like this game either. Oh, and we're at like an hour and 15.
So
Yeah,
you might as well speed up.
We'll keep the dialogue cool and chill and understandable, but we'll keep it short and brief.
Yeah, sounds good.
This game was sort of all about destiny and legacy, and like you play, one of your characters is this child who's inherited these powerful gauntlets from their father that used to be a hero, and now you're like traveling. You get stuck in this place, and you're trying to like find your friends and solve world problems with big powerful fists.
As you do.
That was the most I got out of the story so far.
Really?
I only got through a couple of dungeons.
Wow.
But I mean, I played it for a hefty amount of time. It's a lengthy RPG, and it's all turn-based, so you're confined to the 5-minute fights no matter what you do.
Yeah.
Which turn-based games, another type of tea that I would prefer to leave out of my cup.
I can sometimes dig them, but the grind gets to me at a certain point. Even Pokemon.
Only good turn-based game I've ever played is Divinity Original Sin 2.
You know what's a really good
So
turn-based
good.
game that you would probably like?
But that's just D&D.
Chrono Trigger.
I've heard really good things about Chrono Trigger.
It still holds up. It's like one of the best RPGs ever made.
I should try it. I should bite the bullet.
It's only 16 hours long.
Turn-based is spooky. It's too spooky. I just know I'm gonna. I tried to play Octopath Traveler, and that game was just fucking garbage. I couldn't understand why everyone raved about it.
Yeah, I haven't played it.
It's 8 tutorials of gameplay, disguised as an open world RPG with just the easiest, most watered down turn-based combat. Like, I literally closed my eyes and played the game for like 20 minutes just to see if it could be done.
Could you do that with Battle Chasers?
I mean, Battle Chasers was a little trickier because some of the enemies, like, the scaling on them was rough. Like, some of them would basically one-shot me, so I actually had to pay attention to healing and using defense and stuff. But even then, it was still pretty straightforward. It's just like defend, attack, attack, defend, attack, attack, defend, attack, attack, you know?
It's also like based off of a comic book series, isn't it?
I don't know. It felt like it was. it definitely felt like it should have been if it wasn't, because it was very like, it was stylistically like a comic book. So
I believe it is.
yeah, I wouldn't put it past it. But yeah, so this game, wow, way to save time. That was a heck of a tangent. This game is like all about destiny and legacy, and then there's like obviously these ideas of sort of like colonization and being in a different world that's not your own. You're dropped into this continent where you don't know anyone, and you just like you go around killing the people and ignoring the locals and doing your own thing so that you can find your friends and get out of there. It's kind of like, for heroes, you're kind of fucked up, honestly.
Yeah,
like there's literally a scene where one guy tells you, go find this item and then talk to the blacksmith and he can help you set it up, and you go find the item and then you go, I don't want to talk to the locals, we're better off on our own, and you go set it up yourself.
That's funny. Holy shit.
Yeah, so you're kind of assholes throughout the whole thing. Like, you get involved in these like discrepancies between groups of locals, and you just like fucking kill them because someone asks you to kill them, even though you have no merit to kill them.
Huh. Well,
you even get called out. Yeah, that was the second dungeon. You kill two different tribes of lycanthropes. And then the leader of the two tribes goes, what the hell business did you have interfering with our shit? Please die now.
That's like honestly like I get that response. Like, you're just like fucking insane people who went into a dungeon and just started killing people and taking things.
Yeah, all because some low-level dude was like, I'll only let you through if you kill them all.
And it's like, sure, that sounds reasonable. Let's do it.
Like, I have no reason to say no. They're just other people from a little continent that I don't care about.
This is a video game, and they are the enemy, so I'm going to go and kill them.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, it really distances you from like the violence and like lets you just do fucked up things and be fucked up people in this like town that's just trying to get by.
Oh, wow. Well, that sounds pretty fun if you're into that kind of thing.
Yeah, and like I don't know where the story ends up going because I didn't get through the whole thing. It's a hefty RPG, so there's a lot to play in it. But if you like turn-based combat games, it's worth checking out. You know, just reserve your moral judgment for the characters because they're kind of dicks.
I hear that.
Yeah.
Well, up next is Turok. And Turok is a game that you probably heard of before if you've been a gamer for a while. It was a game that came out on N64 and PC in the 90s. I actually never played it as a kid because I was scared of the dinosaurs. And I can say that I have gotten over that fear. So that's pretty cool. I really enjoyed this game, although I have to say that the atmosphere was actually pretty spooky at times. The music, you can choose for it to be either the original N64 music or the PC soundtrack, which I think I preferred the PC soundtrack.
That's really cool.
Just because the PC soundtrack was like a little bit more atmospheric and a little bit less crunchy, but they were both really good. There's actually a couple of different options just to be able to like kind of switch between more of an old school, like, I mean, they're all old school looks, but
yeah, they sort of kept the original like integrity of the game, but also updated it if you wanted to play.
Yeah, the original kind of looking version. And actually, on top of that, there's also Steam Workshop support for this video game, which is a little bit crazy to me just because I didn't realize it was a PC game first, and just to see an N64 game have like Steam mods and like people playing Wolfenstein in the engine that this game runs in, or I also did
that'd be like if we got like Mario 64 tomorrow with Steam support.
Literally, like, imagine like Mario 64 with like HD texture mods and like fucking like a Wolfenstein area where you get to play as Mario and Wolfenstein.
Just another painting on the wall randomly in the castle you can jump through, and it's Wolfenstein.
Yeah, dude, that's what it was like basically. Except
that's so good.
In order to play the Steam Workshop stuff, you do have to like basically launch the editor for the game, which was interesting. You like when you launch the game, it's like either you play the game or you launch the editor, and then you go to the editor, then you have to go to like the mods section of the editor and then load the mods and then click play.
It's all built separately in a different.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of a challenge to get it going, but I really enjoyed it. We'll say that it's still a little bit like. It is aged a little bit.
100%.
You know, the level design has got that N64 era, like, corridors as far as the eye can see, even though it's a jungle, just giant walls everywhere. It doesn't make any sense, but it's like, cool, all right, this is where we go.
Yeah.
It's also got like some of the early game weapons feels like are just completely eclipsed by like the later game weapons, just because they're like better versions of the original. It's like, why would you use the original? And it still like takes up an inventory slot, so you have to cycle past it every time you want to get to the better weapon.
Fuck.
Like, why? But you actually can download mods that like change it so that the weapons have better balance, and
That's the nice part about having a mod community, is like they can fix all the terrible decisions the developers made.
Especially terrible decisions from older games that have been updated with time, and cool shit. So I really enjoyed Turok. I feel like if you're into this sort of old school thing, although actually I should mention before I like wrap this whole package up, it's a little bit weird that you're playing as like a fake Native American killing other Native Americans and also dinosaurs.
Yeah, that's kind of a problematic.
It's strange.
Little. Yeah. It's interesting.
I don't think this game would fly in 2020.
I was gonna say, you could tell the narrative was designed in like late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah. It's very, very 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, like, there's no story even, really. It's just like you go from place to place, like, I forget what it even is, like collecting seals or something, and I didn't get to the end of the game, but I got decently far enough.
The 90s, when we allowed everyone to be racist because it was funny.
Dude, yeah. I mean, like, racist, sexist, Duke Nukem was a thing, and we all love him.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, think about how popular...
Like, picture of misogyny.
Like, he is just such a perfect image of, like, 90s era masculine, toxic masculinity. Like,
yeah.
But at the same time...
That's what I really love about, like, Mr. Torque from Borderlands.
Yeah.
Because he's that same sort of, like, toxic masculine energy, but it totally breaks the stereotype in this weird parody.
Because he's like willing to play like Dungeons and Dragons and like hang out with a little girl who plays princess.
Yeah, and he's like a sensitive dude, and he's very like in tune with other people, and he uses that like insult toxic energy to like defend people.
Yeah, he just can't stop screaming and has to see things explode.
Yeah, exactly. He's just like, he's this fucking dude that just like, I'm real masculine and dude-like, but also like, don't be a shitty person or I'm gonna throw my fucking guns at you.
Well, hell yeah. That was Turok.
Man, we are feeling the tangents
Yeah, we are
today.
feeling those fucking tangents, bro. It's the COVID shit, man. It's COVID.
It's the COVID, man.
It's getting to
this
us.
is the most interaction I've had with another human being in like a week and a half.
No, it's just lovely to talk.
Yeah. It is. I miss the sweet, soothing voices.
Yeah. But soon we'll all be dead.
And on that note, the ideas of death presented through the lens of Death's Gambit. A game by White Rabbit.
TED Talk.
This game, okay, I have to keep this short because we're already pushing on like an hour and 20 and we still have so much to talk about.
Let's try to keep it under 2 hours,
man,
but if we can do that, that's good.
Yeah, we're going to have to trim this one as much as we can. All right, so this game is like, it's a Soulsborne 2D like side-scroller platformer in that sort of like Castlevania style. And it is fucking incredible. I can't believe I haven't heard of this game before now. It's so good. Like the gameplay is tight and hard. I'd almost say it's harder than the actual Soulsborne games. Like it is very brutal, very unforgiving. A lot of the bosses have really interesting mechanics that you have to like figure out and solve. There was a boss that like there's 4 different ads you can spawn. Each ad has a different ability. When you kill an ad, the boss gets the ability, and the whole thing is on this time limit as the room is filling up with this slime that kills you, basically. So it's like a World of Warcraft raid boss boiled down into this single player experience. It's so cool.
The boss that I saw that really wowed me was the one where it was like a giant colossus that was like bigger than your entire screen, and you could only basically see his legs. And he's just stomping around on you while you're fighting someone else, and that other person is the real boss fight, but you have to evade this sort of environmental hazard.
it's so cool. Like the fights are really interesting. They're well designed. The bosses are well designed. It's really fun. It's hella frustrating. Obviously, like a good Soulsborne game wouldn't be. And it's all wrapped up in this fucking incredible discussion about death and what it means and the role that death plays in our existence, and is death important, and what immortality means, and fighting against death. And it's fascinating, like the way the take on death, especially because it's like a Soulsborne game, so you're gonna die over and over and over again. So they use the idea of knowing your character is gonna die constantly, and that immortality your character has, and it all just plays into the narrative of the game and why you're doing these things, and is what you're doing okay and good. And
yeah, because like when I watched you play this game, one of the things that really struck me was how when you fail and die in the game, they actually expect it so much that like critical story information is conveyed after you die, and like these like nightmares.
As you're dying, you're getting like flashbacks and stuff, and reliving your past and everything, and it gets really, really in depth too. Like the further you progress, the more you find out that like dying over and over again is actually killing you. It's so cool. It's this idea of like the people who are immortal, the more they die, the less human they become. And so if you die enough, you lose all of your humanity and just become this sort of like shell of a person.
Oh, shit.
And yeah, it's really cool. And it changes the way you look at the death in the game and everything too.
Is there like a true end if you don't die?
I don't know. Well, one of the things the game lets you do, from the fucking start of the game, you can take the contract you sign with death that makes you immortal and tear it up.
That's sick.
If you tear it up, you become mortal, which means if you die, your save file gets deleted.
Fuck. So
yeah,
you totally
so
could
I'm
play
sure
that way.
I'm 100% sure something happens if you play through the game as mortal. I don't know what it is. I don't know if I am skilled enough to be able to do that and find it out, but I guarantee someone has done it on YouTube.
It's fucking Iron Man mode, man. That's intense.
It really is, yeah. I went to tear up the contract just to see what it would say, and it's just like, are you sure you want to do this? If you die again, your save file will be...
Did you stop there?
And I was like, yeah, I stopped there. I was like, nah, thanks. Nah, dog. And then I walked about 2 feet and died.
I passed, dog. Yeah, and then you would have had the whole thing deleted. It's like, sure!
Yeah, so if I was better, I would try it, but... It already, even without it, it's such a good game talking about death. So like, if you're worried about death, especially right now with everything going on, not that, you know, we're not fear mongering or anything here. Some people are just afraid. Like, we're different age groups, different people.
Death is a scary thing. It's a scary thing to sort of come to reality with.
Yeah, it really is. And so if that's a topic that you're really interested in, then like, play this game.
Oh.
Yeah, it talks a lot of good shit about death. And most of the characters talk shit about death because death is an actual character.
And he's an asshole.
But, like, I mean,
is he?
He doesn't seem like a bad guy.
Wow.
I don't know, though. I don't want to pass that judgment. He just seems like he's doing his job, you know?
Yeah.
Fucking working class unite.
Honestly, that seems to be, like, the most realistic depiction of death, is not somebody who's, like, out to hurt anybody, but just, like, doing their job.
There's this one part, man, this game does some weird shit, like there's a part where you're like you die and then you like fight your way through some sort of afterlife thing, and there's a boss fight that's entirely just like based on movement and not actually punching, like hitting anything. Really, really cool shit. And there's a part where you go into this like underground area full of technology and you run into death just chilling down there.
Dope.
Like, yeah, and your character goes up and he's like, "What the fuck are you doing here?" Like, and Death is like, he's like, "I'm just playing a video game, dude.
Like, I'm just playing cards, man."
Yeah, he's just chilling there playing like a video game, like an old arcade video game.
Like a modern ass arcade. What the fuck?
Yeah, and you ask him what it's about, and he's just like, "It's this game where you die over and over again and try to progress."
Sound familiar?
And your character's like, "That sounds super boring."
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I guess most things do sound boring when they're the things that you do in your daily life. You describe them in sort of like a third person.
But yeah, it's fucking great. I really, really enjoyed this game.
Wow, that's awesome, man.
And if you like challenges, if you like the sort of Soulsborne thing, I can't believe more people haven't
I've never heard of this game. I've heard of lots of Soulsborne games, but not this game.
Yeah, it's been completely under my radar, and it's 100% worth it.
Well, hell yeah, they dude.
Hell yeah.
Felseal Arbiter's Mark. I'm a king of transition.
I was gonna try to set you up with a segue.
Fuck
there,
it.
But...
I'm just dunking that transition right into the trash.
All right.
Maybe next time.
We've all got our style, you know. I like a good segue. You like to kick the door down and come in screaming.
That's how my D&D characters always work too. I like playing the orcs who just fuck everything up for everyone else and to get the plot going. Okay, Felseal Arbiter's Mark is a game from 6 Eye Studios. This is actually, I believe, their first video game. I didn't find anything else online. And this is a isometric 2D tactical RPG, very much inspired by Final Fantasy Tactics. It's similar to other games like Summon Knight, Vandal Hearts, Tactics Ogre, and Disgaea. If any of those games sound familiar to you, you'll probably know what I'm talking about here. So there's like this sort of 2D pixel art style, which it's very like high, what's the right word for it? High definition pixel art. So it's like quite detailed, and it kind of put me off at first. Some of the character portraits in particular are kind of like, not the best in my opinion. But I still really enjoyed the game, and after a while I grew to really enjoy the art style as well, partially because the game is so customizable. Most of the... What was that?
I'm sorry, I just caught a glimpse of your notes for this game.
Oh, so should I go over that?
Yeah. Let's jump right into
the character customization, because you get to customize a whole lot of different characters, and there's really extensive class character customization. You're hacking up, you can't even handle it. So
I should have looked at that before we started.
No, it's cool. I'm really happy to get your genuine reaction. So you start out with like a couple of characters like Virgil and Lana, and you can kind of customize them and change their outfits and colors if you want, or you can keep them the same. And then I recruited a bunch of other characters later, including but not limited to Lacrima, the wizard mender, Doug, who was a girl, and she was an expert ranger, scoundrel hunter lady, Greg, who was a skeleton man, and he saved people with his healing magic. Randy McLean, who is a plague doctor, and he constantly wears a plague mask wherever he goes. Butt Knight the 23rd. He is a Templar knight from a very long, prestigious line of Butt Knights. Pete Buttigieg is a peddler scoundrel. I just felt like that was fitting for Pete to be a peddler / scoundrel. Maxie was like a werewolf ranger lady. Bruno was like this real scary Templar mercenary. And then finally Gail Doherty was a druid that I very recently added to the party. And as you can tell just by that, there's a lot of variety in terms of class, and like I haven't even gotten to a lot of the classes like Gunner and other cool shit that like I've seen around enemies having, and it's just so much fun. It's a joy just like slamming down Pete Buttigieg, and he's there like fighting for me and like stealing shit and like
just like he stole the delicates.
Just like he fixed those bread prices. He's a peddler scoundrel, that one.
We're on to
you, Pete. But thanks for using the Phoenix down when we needed it. That was cool of you. So the combat in this game, I might as well kind of jump into that next. is very much kind of like a chess game where it very much matters. Actually, not like chess. It's on a grid. That's what I meant to say by chess. Like, but that each character faces different directions, and like that sort of matters because like if you get hit from behind, then it does more damage than if you get hit from the front or the side. And so there's sort of like that sort of element of positioning and wanting to know like where each character is and like a certain fight. Like there are cool storytelling things that kind of happen in this sort of system of combat. Like one really memorable encounter was where we were on the way to recruiting a potential new member of our crew who's like a doctor, and he's also like this necromancer guy. It calls him an anatomist, and when you show up to his house, the guy who's in your party is like an enemy with him. Like he separated on bad terms, and so the moment that you show up, he's like, "Oh fuck, it's him," and so he attacks you with all of his zombies and stuff, and he separates you from your friend who's on the roof. So he's on the roof, and then you're on the ground, and you have to like try to live for long enough, like not even defeat them, but just live long enough for your guy in the party to convince the guy inside the house to let you in. You know? And it's just like those little like unique objectives and like interesting,
sort of like they do in a lot of the Fire Emblem games.
Yeah.
Sometimes the objective is not actually to win the fight.
Yeah, and if you've ever played Fire Emblem, it is a similar kind of analog, because it does work on that same sort of grid system, even though this has more of an element of verticality to it. Like, you can't attack enemies who are on, like, a higher level than you, even if you're standing right next to them. So there's more element of positioning that you have to worry about in this game, even more so than, say, your not your Final Fantasy, Fire Emblem. Yeah, but speaking of Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy X would be a really close analog for how like it organizes your character movement. Like you can have certain characters go faster if they end their turn, and it'll like move them up in the turn order. Sort of like Final Fantasy X, if you've ever played that, and the way that the turn order works in that game. Because I've never actually played a Final Fantasy Tactics game, or any kind of tactics game like this. This is my first foray into the genre, and yeah, really? I've never ever played a game like this.
I think I have Final Fantasy Tactics on the PS4 if you'd like to borrow
it. I unfortunately don't have a PS4, but I would love to play that at some point. Just
well, you're more than welcome to come over during this period of self-isolation.
Absolutely. Get ourselves both some coronavirus to share. But what was I saying?
It's your first tactics game.
Yeah, first tactics game. The fights I found to be very long, very grueling, very arduous. Not in a bad way, necessarily. Just they're long ass fights and lots of shit, and you have to just decide like where to face every character at the end of every turn, and there's a lot to think about. And so when you mess up and you have to go back, it does kind of really suck, and it feels like you've wasted a lot of time, and it's like, oh god, I have to fucking grind, which happened to me right before the second like main quest marker that I'll talk about in a minute. That I had to just start grinding all my characters and leveling them up because I was getting my ass handed to me. And the way that the game works is that when a character falls in battle, they don't die; they're actually just injured. And you can resurrect them with like a Phoenix down, but they'll have like less stats because they've been injured. And after combat, like every combat that you engage with lowers the party's injury rating, which meant that early on I had to adopt a bunch of new characters because all of the characters that I had were injured and couldn't be used in combat. Or if they were, then they would have really huge debuffs, which would make it a lot harder for them to be survivable. So that was an interesting mechanic. But I feel like I should talk about the story of Felseal because that's kind of where the bread and butter of making you want to keep playing is.
So I feel like Humble Bundle's kind of doing this thing every month where they're building sort of thematic ideas. Like last month we had the rebuilding of society and all these games that sort of followed that. And as I'm sure you're going to hit on in this, it feels like there's a lot of games in this bundle this month talking about mortality and death and that role.
Also, a little bit about corruption, maybe. Would you say that's something about like EXAPunks that kind of comes through a little bit as well? Because this game is all about basically a system of governance revolving around immortals, and like the main character of this game is essentially an arbiter of justice for the immortals. They're called arbiters, and they're basically like police officers who enforce immortal law. They're not immortal themselves, but they sort of have the privilege of the immortal class supporting them in all of their endeavors.
Just like the police aren't actually rich.
Yeah,
but...
they're not actually like the upper class, but they do sort of hold a higher level in position in society. And the main character is so lawful good that it actually made some people in the Steam reviews upset that I noticed. Like, they were like, this character is just like too nice. They're too...
Wow.
Some people called them generic or like kind of a do-gooder. And like, so, personally, I kind of found that to be interesting. Just because, and I wrote this in my copy, it felt like giving Superman a police officer uniform, giving him a couple months to get used to it, and then letting him know, hey, by the way, did you know about police corruption? and it's sort of like this conflict of ideals of like this person who wants to uphold the laws that are upheld in the realm, but also like wanting to sort of do justice within the system. And sort of...
Yeah, like, are the laws actually moral and just?
Right. There's this, like, the first thing that happens in the game, this isn't a spoiler, because it's literally the first fucking thing, is you see a guy just kill somebody else. And you basically spend the first act of the game bringing that guy to a courthouse to bring him to justice. But when you bring him there, you're like convened for like this immortal meeting, and they announce that the immortals are going to be stepping down. Like the current immortal is stepping down to produce a new leader, and that is causing like strife in the immortal community because they're like, "Fuck, who's going to replace him?"
Yeah.
And so what happens is the marked start becoming a thing, and they start electing people to start going on a pilgrimage, where if they go and collect, I guess this is where the Fell Seal comes from. The different seals from the different temples. I think there's like 5 in total. Then you bring them back, and you can become immortal yourself. And the interesting thing about being marked is that you have complete... what's the right term? You don't have to abide by the law. You can do anything, and you will have a free pass to do it. That includes murder, stealing, theft, whatever. The only thing that it doesn't work against is other immortals or arbiters who invoke self-defense, which happens at one point in the story, and it like surprises the other character. He's like, what? No, I have the right, the eternal immortal right to do whatever I want. And it's like, no, I invoke self-defense. And it's like literally like the stand your ground law, like being...
That's like 2 people arguing over free speech in the sense that like, I can say what I want because it's free speech, and they're like, well, I can tell you not to say that because it's free speech.
Well, yeah, I mean, it literally is, but like I specifically felt like it was specifically like a stand your ground sort of a thing.
Yeah.
Like, and it was just weird, like just all of these like loopholes. Like later on, eventually you'll like have the help of an immortal in one battle, and like it's so funny because it's like a mortal law that immortals are not allowed to get involved in the affairs of mortals, but at the same time he's skirting that rule by just casually teleporting people into the water and killing them. And so it's not like he's killing them because they just happened to be teleported somewhere else. Then they died. Like, and it's just like the constantly like using law and as like a juxtaposition for morality and like.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
In that respect, I actually really enjoyed a lot of the story. I felt like it wasn't maybe as strong as it could be, but like I don't know, who cares? It was fun and it held the combat aloft. I felt.
Hell yeah, and I mean honestly, most of these games are made by like an indie developer, and you know, not everyone can wear every hat.
Yeah.
So some areas are going to be a little weaker than others.
So I really enjoyed this game, although that being said, I don't know that I'm going to finish it. It's really time intensive, although maybe it's like a 40-hour long campaign, I'd say.
Still a lot of time to invest.
I don't have that time right now. I might come back to it at some point, but I would wonder if I would be totally like in out of my head coming back, because there's a lot about like class building and like sort of the mechanics of the game and the minutia of it that I might forget, but I don't know.
I always have that issue coming back to RPGs.
Yeah. It's like, what was I building for? What was I doing? I don't remember.
Might as well just start a new game at this point.
Basically. But that's Fell Seal. I think it's pretty enjoyable. Especially if you're into those kind of tactics RPG type games. Just know that the main character, according to some, is a prude. So, I mean, you could say that about a lot of people, but whatever.
All right. We got probably like 20 minutes after we edit shit out, right?
Yeah.
So let's rapid fire these last ideas.
Okay.
So that's it for the bundle for this week. We made it through.
That's all.
Well, that's it for the core bundle. We got some side stuff to talk about real quick, but that's it. That's your 12 options of games for the bundle.
Yeah, but if you want a little something extra, well,
yeah, let's power through this extra.
Yeah, just real quick here, because I have to talk about this game. We forgot to talk about the extras last month, and I feel terrible about that because last week's extra was Tales from Off-Peak City. This is the one I'm going to be talking about the most out of all the extras. It is a game by Cosmo D. It's one of a series of games. Like, his first one is just called Off-Peak, and there's also other games that he has on Steam. I think like Norwood or something is what it's called. And they're all these abstract adventure games in worlds that are like partially pre-built assets and partially like really warped kind of nightmarish dreamscapes. And the idea that I really wanted to draw from here was something that I learned of in theater, which is Brechtian alienation. And if you've never heard of that, allow me to explain. It's sort of the idea of distancing yourself. It's called the distancing effect also. But distancing yourself from what's happening so you don't have as much of an emotional investment, and that way you can consider more why things are happening rather than what is necessarily happening, right? Like, from Wikipedia, it's a technique used by directors to distance the audience from emotional investment in the work, in jolting reminders of the artificiality of the film performance. And I feel like the artificial part is really important, because like the use of pre-made assets and things that are like very clearly fake or like pastiche or copied from somewhere else, it's like something that's used to sort of put you in like sort of a state of like knowing something is familiar but also feeling off-put by the fact that it's so abstract and different. And it really forces you to start asking like why the things are happening, because if you start thinking too much about what's happening, you're going to go crazy. It's an adventure game where you make pizzas and you deliver pizzas to people, all while trying to steal the owner's saxophone. That's the plot. Like, it's nonsense. But at the same time, there's like this layer above it that's sort of like, well, why do we have to use canned pasta sauce? And it's sort of revealed like maybe there's something in the sauce that's kind of keeping people like to be more complacent in society.
God, this is buck wild.
And like the pizza place like connects like every aspect of the community, and like every person seems like totally complacent with the things that are happening around them, even though there's like these abstract surreal things that are happening. Like a building, like an entire apartment building was transformed into just a face, and at one point you deliver a pizza to the face and it eats it and then it smiles at you. And like if you try to talk to other people about that, then they'll just like kind of try to avoid the conversation. It's like, I don't want to talk about that guy. I don't want to talk about that apartment building.
It's just like, not my pig, not my farm.
Yeah, and it's just, God, it's genius, because it just, with the nonsense, it forces you to sort of question everything. And in questioning everything, you sort of come to your own idea of what was happening and why.
It's really interesting, and I don't think it's really been explored that much in the realm and space of video games, but the ideas of other art forms collapsing with video games. Like, how do you make an absurdist video game? Like, how do you make a video game that's authoritarian or like Dada, or, you know, it's really interesting. This,
and just like just the idea of like taking the ideas of distancing and social alienation and turning it into like a mechanic, where like Brecht, what he would do for his plays is he would like have signs next to people while they're performing, like she will do this or she feels this way, and then you're sort of supposed to watch it and then sort of keep the sign in mind and sort of think, why is that the case? And that happens in this game where like the text is all conveyed, or the dialogue rather is all conveyed through text. just spoken above like the characters, and it's almost like these little signs next to the characters that you sort of take them in and take them in their environment, and you sort of have this sort of pastiche of wondering like, well, why? Why is this combination of things the way that it is? You know, I don't know. I enjoyed it.
That sounds so good.
So it's so short too, and it's free. So go play it. Like, honestly, it's so weird that if you're into this kind of thing and you're watching this podcast, you're listening, like, you'll probably enjoy it. But the other game, Space Routine, I forget. I just have to keep talking.
yeah, you're the only one that did this.
I'm the only one who played the extras. Space Routine. I'm just going to go through these two really quick because I don't have nearly as much to say. Space Routine was the humble original game for this month. It is a very stressful game where you manage a family in space. The story of how I did this was I couldn't get my child to the bus. I tried several times while reading the tutorials over and over again and couldn't figure it out or find the bus. So I eventually starved in the middle of space, but at least I had my family with me at the time. So
that's all we can ask for, honestly.
Yeah, dying in the vacuum of space with my family. Also, oh, sorry.
Elon Musk.
Yeah, I mean, that's the future. If we're all going to die on Earth, then let's all die in space instead.
Yeah.
So One Step from Eden was the other game that was on here, and it was actually just a demo. But I had a lot of fun with it. It was this very interesting roguelike deck-building grid-based shmup, which is a lot. But
yeah, that's what?
Yeah, it's like kind of like what?
Come again?
So let's break that down. There's deck building. So the abilities that you get, you sort of like after every encounter are randomly generated, so like the roguelike element, and you sort of build the deck with these different abilities, and then you get to the end, and then you fight a boss. It has elements sort of like Undertale, where you're like kind of trying to dodge these bullets while you're like on a grid, if you can imagine like the one spiderweb minigame. It's very much like that. From Undertale. Yeah, so you have like these paths, sort of like FTL, that your character goes down. You can kind of choose between like the upper, the lower, the middle path, and they have different rewards or objects. And then at the very end, you have to fight a boss, and like I believe that they're exclusive to the demo, the two different bosses that are there. I beat the first one, and there was a second harder one after it. And then I don't know what happens if you beat that second harder one. But I feel like there's like a secret ending to just the demo that's like completely exclusive, which I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that sounds really dope.
My favorite demos are the ones that like actually are completely unique and separate from the main game. Like the Stanley Parable demo is one of the best demos ever.
I have never played the Stanley Parable demo.
God, you need to play it. It's so good.
I definitely should.
Yeah, it's like a sort of extension of the main game, but with only one main path, really.
Okay. It's what I imagine would have been the case with PT had Silent Hill.
Very much, yes. It's just like PT in the sense that it just exposes you to the ideas of the game in sort of like a very fun, creative way. And like then at the end maybe revealing what it was. But
I like that.
Yeah.
That's always a very charming way to go about it.
Yeah. So I like that a whole lot. That's it for me.
Well, all right. So that's it. We made it through the bundle. We made it through the bundle extras. Look at us go.
Wow, that was a lot.
So top game of the bundle. What you got?
I don't know. This is hard to choose for me because listening to you talk about my friend Pedro made me really enjoy that and kind of really want to play that.
Yeah, I am blown away. I didn't actually get to finish the game. I was one level away.
Yeah.
So I googled the ending before, and I was blown away at what the result ended up being. It's fantastic.
So while I'm tempted to say my friend Pedro, I feel like I have to go with the off the wall pick and say Tales from Off Peak City because it was so. And officially I am going with that because it was so strange, and I've never played a game like it before. It actually felt like an artistic expression of like. I don't know, just something like that's unique to video games.
I love that, but I want to challenge that idea. Yeah. In the sense that wasn't that last month's free game?
It was. It was. So she
So-
so I should pick one from this month. You should say.
That's what I'm saying. We're doing humble of the month, right?
Fine. Fine.
Now we can retroactively disregard your pick last month and say Tails instead. But Hex was your pick last
The
month.
thing is that I like the Hex so much. I like both of them.
You just want to sneak it in. All right, we'll give
do.
it to you. We'll say Tails.
It's Tales from Off Peak City. I mean, it's free and it's available on itch.io all year round, so it might as well be this month's game.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's fair. If they can still get it, that's what.
No, yeah, you can get it all year round, and that's actually the nice thing about it is that it's completely free, and you can just download it right now if you want.
Well, perfect. And I'll take back my criticisms. You know,
That's right. Get back in your hole, criticisms.
I'm not afraid to crawl in my hole.
That's right. Safe hole. It's like that one Junji Ito comic. It's my hole.
It's my. Cool.
Anything to wrap
yeah,
up?
I love it. I get to say my game.
Yeah, please. Oh fuck! Please.
Yeah. My game of the month would absolutely be EXAPunks. I think I did myself a disservice last month talking about Zakatronics games in such a. I mean, they're good. I just thought they were above me, and taking the time to actually learn it, like, play that fucking game.
I'm honestly really glad that that ended up being the case.
Yeah, me too.
His games just are so fucking cool in concept to me. I just can't always latch onto them.
You just gotta power through it and figure it out, man.
Yeah, it's really inspiring me. It makes me want to go and challenge more of his games, even though Space Chem made me so mad.
I really want to go back and try out Shenzhen IO now too.
Maybe we'll revisit Shenzhen one day.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a bonus Zakatronics in-depth episode or something.
Just every single Humble Bundle offered Zachtronics game.
Yeah, or if we had gotten them when they were on sale like a week ago.
Yeah, every single one of them.
Rip. All right, what else are we playing? Let's hit that out real quick, and then some other free stuff, and then we'll leave you guys to your days, your nights, your evenings, your coronas.
The elephant in the room is Animal Crossing.
Oh, it's more like a cute little raccoon in the room.
I mean, it can be an elephant too.
It could be an elephant.
It could be a cute little elephant.
It could be a swan.
But you do have to address it.
Man.
And
we absolutely have to.
It is such a good game, especially for social distancing right now, where we have to be away from each other, and the ability to sort of visit each other in a virtual space is just so valuable.
You can be with your friends.
I love it.
On their farm, while still not catching infectious viruses.
And I named my island Communism, so everything is for the sake of communism.
I really like that. I really appreciate that. Mine is, of course, Bean City. Not sure why, but that's what we went with.
Beans. Your animals have the beans.
Beans, baby. Beans are always funny. I don't know what it is about them.
My animals are dealing with class struggle. And I was immediately elected to be the main representative of communism, which is really funny.
They just right away. They don't hesitate. They're just this guy came up with a good name. He's obviously leadership material.
I posted about it on Twitter. It was oh man, look at this. That escalated pretty quickly. I'm the leader of communism.
Thanks, Karl Marx.
It felt like that one scene from Animal Farm.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. So, also, I installed Warzone. Haven't played it.
Oh, did you install
Haven't played it.
Yes. Let's play some, dude. Oh,
yeah, I'd love to.
It's so good. I've been on a Warzone kick. It's a free to play battle royale by Call of Duty people that fixes so many of the issues I've had with battle royales.
Which what are the fixes?
Choice. The idea of spawning, I think the way they handle it's very, very good. You can drop in, people can revive you for cash, or your first death you have the chance to 1v1 someone to come back to life. Super cool. You can use your multiplayer loadouts in the game by purchasing a loadout kit, which lets you and your team swap all your weapons out for one of your loadouts. It costs $8,000 and they randomly drop. So you're less reliant on getting good RNG and more reliant on your skill as a player.
Yeah.
which is super helpful. Like it's more about like just surviving and collecting cash for the first few bits, and then it becomes about skill and about knowing the maps and how to play the circle and stuff, rather than like, well, all I found was a pistol on the rip, so we're gonna lose. Yeah, so it's great, and like the way they let you communicate in the game, they have like Apex, they have a flag system, so you can warn people where things are and shit like that without even needing microphones.
See, that shit's so nice. The ping system is what made Apex so revolutionary to me.
Yeah, it's the ping system is exactly like Apex's, so it's great. I do miss the class-based kind of battle in Apex, but it's hard to get people that want to play Apex.
Yeah. I have a friend who's banned from Apex.
Oh shit, how do you get banned?
I don't know. I don't think he knows either. He's just banned.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah, one day, like, fuck you, can't play anymore.
Yep. And then my last mention of things I've been playing this week is Stardew Valley. My buddy and I got back into it. We made a farm together. And it's just, God, I love the game. I love that it, like, right off the bat makes you decide, do you want this to be a capitalist community or a socialist community? And then you just run with it.
Yeah, man. It's great. I love that game so fucking much. I've got more hours in that game than most others of recent memory.
We started this farm together, and so I loaded up my other farm just to like see where I was and maybe play solo a little bit. And I was just so overwhelmed. I have like a three bedroom house and like every fucking thing unlocked, and I don't even remember playing it that much.
I feel that. That's why I keep restarting. I've restarted I think 3 or 4 times now. Just like...
Yeah, I came back and saw my farm, and I was like, oh god, apparently I went down that rabbit hole, not again, and shut it off.
I don't remember where I put anything. Everything is misplaced, and everything, there's so much of it. Goodbye.
Yeah. Cool. That's what we've been playing this week.
There's some free games.
Fun shit. We should drop our friend codes in the Discord and the description.
We will.
Get us some social distancing friends going.
I will say there are some free things available. As always, Epic Games is giving out some games right now. They are currently giving out the Stanley Parable, which we even talked about in this bundle. It's a great, great video game.
Look at that 20-minute later segue.
Yeah, no kidding. And also Watch Dogs, which I never got to play, but it was one of those games that always interested me.
I played Watch Dogs. I don't remember it a lot. I really liked the like vigilantism and the same sort of like Zachatronics ideas of like what role is technology playing, and
just felt like
the sort of like government surveillance sort of invasiveness role that it plays, which was really interesting.
I do love that you're able to just walk up to anybody and just know a whole bunch of shit about them, like
everything about
that is a really cool commentary about like the information age. Although I really wish that you could. If the game was just more about the hacking, like I know Watch Dogs 2 had like a bunch of hacking, and it seemed like if they just made a game that was all about hacking and like had very little gunplay, that would be almost more exciting.
EXAPunks.
Hey, that's your endorsement for this podcast.
Yeah, it's a good game. Yeah, the gameplay and mechanics are a little watered down. It's sort of like this is just a AAA version of hacking,
right?
So, but it's fun and has good relevant themes.
After that, next week they're also going to be giving out Figment and Tormentor / Punisher, whatever that is.
The games are Figment and Tormentor X Punisher.
I don't know. Speak.
I mean, you know the whole like lack of punctuation in my outline.
It's really fun. And finally, there's a couple of games that are free right now on Steam, such as like Drawful 2 and Tomb Raider and like Lara Croft. There's like a isometric dungeon crawling thing. We'll put some links to that in the description. And
yeah, we'll have some links to all these other free games. And one other thing, good old gaming company there, Good Old Games. GOG, they're in honor of the COVID virus, giving out like 27 games for free as well to keep you safe and sane during your social distancing.
That is some good quality games. They got some good shit actually, don't they?
Yeah, there's some really great titles to pick from. Like, I mean, all of them are free. You don't have to pick. So
right, you just get all of them.
Yeah, like Hello Neighbor Alpha.
That's the ticket.
that is the one I latched on to, because that game is just dumb and absurd and kind of charming. But yeah, so that's what we got for you guys today.
Yeah.
We still gotta figure out a sign off.
Like an outro of some kind?
Yeah, you know.
There's something to say at the end besides just vamping for like the music.
Yeah, exactly. Like last time we did the whole we are the bourgeoisie and the
like we had a funny laugh, yeah.
But I don't think that one stuck.
No, that did not stick with me.
What do you want to try today?
Maybe this is it.
Just vamping out till we find the outro.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Okay. Bye.